our lives become more of a movie than a literal life.
Yeah, seems like it's the shared feeling that seems to be the important bit in all of that, rather than all of the issues.
But if an issue then comes that says, hold it, I saw you throw his ashes in with your left hand, and it's a right hand thing you're supposed to do. And you say, who the hell knew right hand? I said, oh, you violated the whole thing with
Our
that
lives
left
become
hand
more of a
thing.
movie than
And you say, look, Ben, I don't know if you're talking about left hand or right hand. I was just trying to do right by Johnny D's ashes. But that there's some kind of hidden code that it's uncool to use the left hand. It says right hand. So then you understand what delicate world you move in then, where left hand and right hand have some meaning, even though it's kind of meaningless, it's kind of a devotional act. If you see a critique happen, so then you see what would live on, that you threw the ashes in honor to John, or would the flaw in what you did be the thing that's recognized and runs through? So then they say, well, what is that? We've been exploring this pretty much all the time, where the premise is a meeting around creating a community of seeing, where seeing is the norm. Just as if you were kind of conversant in almost any creative form, where knowing writing, if you're a writer, knowing styles of writer and backgrounds becomes second nature to you now if you're meeting other writers. So then I feel if you're meeting people around the exploration of life, not the fixed form. Boy, what a time we've just had here with the visit and seeing where you were kind of trying to create an atmosphere where the past was not the dominant factor, but somehow the people meeting each other, where the kind of relationship starts from the meeting. Not from, so the history is more of a mystery. It doesn't dictate what happens. And yet you see that the almost impossibility of that, okay, because you see the tendency to continue. So what do you say then? How have you been, Derek?
I've been okay. Pretty grateful for the most part, about life and things. So hard to have any real complaints, even though I had all kinds of reasons to complain.
No, so I'm glad that you feel then that sense, at least that kind of that you're a free person.
Yeah.
And it's not freedom like you broke out of jail or something like that. Freedom is a natural thing, not an opposite to anything else. Mm-hmm. So you feel pretty much free to do your life, do your thing. Has that happened?
Yeah, I think so. Sort of stepping out into a space of some kind, or and just seeing what unfolds or what comes up is pretty free, I think.
Okay, what do you feel happening with me? What would you like? Shall we hire?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like I have all of the answers. I'm not saying that I'm looking for the answers from you per se, but it feels like the relationship there's a lot of ground to cover.
Well, the reason for me is that basically the past circumstances, I'm on the way out, old geezer. I'll see you later, man. I'm going to watch Judge Judy. Or should you talk to people screaming at you and crying? Okay. No, I said, let me watch Judge Judy. There's an aloneness. So we were talking about that somehow, that in the space there's an aloneness, which is not isolation or this or that, but is kind of non-relevant to the literal world of doing and this and that. So then if you find yourself sitting in the place and you're supposed to be all that, but you say, excuse me, can you tell me the time? They say, no, I'm too busy. I got all these people. You see that they have something to do. And somehow, even though you're sharing that with them, somehow when you ask something, it's interfering with a project they're engaged in. But okay. So at that point in time, your state is more a perspective on things. Hmm?
Yeah.
Because presumably people are coming into a situation to meet you around a dynamic.
Right.
So then I say something that you had introduced with Elliot out of nowhere, but then introduced me to a sense that 30 years ago, I took his girlfriend and I said, we had such a struggle and who died and who did this and the passing away and trying and looking at things. But they also had an association with the guy. So I see there's a story out there. Hmm?
Yeah.
And when you look at it, I'm a pretty cheesy mother jumper in that story. Or they're pretty cheesy mother jumpers for pushing that story, knowing it's full of shit and pushing it for their own ends because they know I'll accidentally see what they're doing. And so then you understand that, in fact, I've been carrying something myself. So generally, I felt that knowingly doing that and spreading that when it could have had a simple conversation, and especially since they feared the guy so deeply themselves, and then you being called into the storyline, meaning that somehow you and I kind of freeing you to get a job, what the hell's get a job or whatever. But my feeling is also that it does signal the end of this kind of format.
How so?
I don't know. It seems to me that what it did create was a deep looking enough for me into a situation where I actually felt I had a conversation with the person who passed away, you know, and then I saw past all the shtick and the psychological stuff, and that I saw something purely deep, and I saw a kind of broken heart in the life. Now it looks like the broken heart was caused by the girlfriend, but the broken heart was kind of revealed by the girlfriend. That you lived your life somehow with a broken heart. You know, so then I say, okay, it's revealed by the circumstance of that. It's not because then the person who, if you have ever consulted them, can say, hey, look, you can't use me in your scheme. You guys got a scheme going. I'm married, man. You don't drive me. You're gonna say my love is impure, that I'm a lame little whore or something like that? Yes, that's what they're saying. How's it doing then, Derek?
I guess I didn't hear it that way.
I know, but I'm hearing it a little bit that way when no one ever consulted Mary to say, hey, what was your perspective on it? And they say, are you kidding me that I'm not free? Okay. So then generally, I see then this has been out for years and this is that I may have bumped into all this time. And probably intuitively there, but then I also see, okay, how heavy duty they must have managed it for me to be this guy when it was a conversation that could, not a conversation that gets rid of it. But as a matter of fact, it then constituted, if in fact that is out there, promoted by me, by those guys, and I did this. Not only did I did this, but I did this and that, and okay. And I never met the guy, I never saw the guy, and they're willing to go with that. I think it's a bit cheesy, but I also think it's a pretty normal move by these guys.
Hmm.
But it does have me want to say, um, bye-bye, take it easy. You know. I'm so happy that I don't have to inherit these guys and look out for them because I see a deep hurt running through them. And I see you were bringing a deep hurt into my life. Thank God they spared me that. I was willing to then take Elliot deeply. I did have in my own mind with almost everyone a vow to be there for them. So thank God Elliot made that sound pretty dumb and kicked me out of such a story that I'm going to be there for Elliot. Okay, and being there meant that we recognized that we shared a kind of journey, but it was always coincidental. So then the first thing that was said to you and read was Mary. Okay, without mentioning. So then I said, okay, it's not so much the plot because it did allow me, because I couldn't just be with the cheesiness of it, but I had to be with, holy shit, they're willing to send them down the fucking train without even a conversation. But then I say, no, but that's 30 years ago, man. The person died. So that happened, allowed me to be with something deeply enough. And that's the basis of homeopathy, is that you look at something deeply enough and you see past the medication's idea that they want to heal you or get rid of the pain and get rid of, and you look past with the homeopathy and you see the pain that you're feeling and the problem that you're having is not some alien. Your arm is not an alien because it hurts. It's your baby that's hurting. So somehow the homeopathy allows you to see the pain in a different place, not only getting rid of it, but kind of understanding it. And the understanding of it changed it somewhat. And it resembles somehow where your arm that was hurting became almost like a baby that you were caring for. You picked it up, you tried to see what was happening or whatever. That premise was also there with illness, that it wasn't a foreign thing that you had to get rid of or fight or do, but that somehow some elements allowed you a reflection on what was happening. And it revealed that your body is not your enemy to some degree. And so I feel that being with something allowed me then to, weirdly enough, see the broken heart in the story. And then I understood Mary passing by, if she should die or get lost, if we should break up, how it would send me to a similar place as that guy, where the differences between the people were governed by the hurt that would be there in the situation. It wasn't hurt about anything. So I did meet, I felt in that. And then I also felt, weirdly enough, that there was a conversation, not literalness conversation, but a look, a shared space with the passed away person. And that the body was not the only instrument then. I saw that there were conversations after the fact that had an honesty in them, because you were no longer saving the life, you were no longer continuing the life, you were no longer, that was not the main focus of you. So somehow in leaving the body, the soulful aspects of the situation. And so I saw the soulful aspect, but I also saw them. I saw a deep hurt that must, and a deep longing in these guys that manifested in something that was happening with them. And so the not only the hurt, but the hurt revealing a broken heart, but then it also revealed the normalcy of the broken heart, that it runs through the life, that you think that an incident caused the broken heart, but an incident revealed the broken heart. And so there's a difference in the literalness. If it happens literally with a person, then there's a getting even, there's a hurt, there's a whole story that's built. When it comes from almost from the passed away situation, there is no argument, because it didn't have that object. It is in fact a broken heart you see as normal. You see at this point in time, it seems like humanity is in a broken heart space. So they're talking about China doing this and this one doing that. But you see inherently, just by looking at it, a kind of broken heart that dehumanizes the situation. So then I say, look, if the move was put out there that way, it had a reason. They were protecting their own seeing. And you don't want Danny. So if you get you don't want Danny to see their seeing. You understand? Okay. It was like I visited that time when they were doing the experiments up there, and there was kind of all kind of trash on the couch. And I said, look, why do you need the trash on the couch? But then there was a signature or whatever. So then I became known as the guy who was asking, why should you have so much garbage on your couch? Like, okay, why?
Seems you're pointing at something deeper than that.
I wanted to sit on the couch, there's garbage on the couch. So to me, it was quite plain. But then I didn't know it was a signature of some sort and it meant this or it meant that. So then you step into a story. And when you step into the story, uh, then your invitation into the story is coming from a kind of shared creative experience, no trip. So basically, you see the problem that I would be inside literally that situation, not only visiting it, unless somebody needed help, like that fellow Will that came, that was had a very big thing there, and I think Elliot is really afraid of. I don't know what went down, but I also did say that knowingly it was cheesy because at the same time that was going along, and in the same time that became the thing. Okay, I don't mind it because it does free me from some pretty heavy guys that I think I would have been here for. But now it does seem absurd to be there for these guys when you know a heavy sea may be coming down. If they're going to send me to that place, then they must have a very heavy sea that they're protecting and caring for. Um, and they certainly don't want me to see it. Um, so, what do you think?
Yikes, I think, is what springs to mind.
Yeah, but I want you to be free to explore it with that they don't have to succeed in killing something. I'll surrender it because I'm kind of retiring. So I don't know what retiring means, but next week that you'll be going to the dentist is kind of allowing me a kind of retirement sense of something, where it does seem that most I'm hanging with some of the talk because there's some friends who are dying possibly in it, and I want to be there for them in that experience. But whether there's relevance anymore, uh, so you let me know, but I feel it would come from a new space. So let's say that the Elliot coming into the story interrupted the story enough that if in fact it comes back again, it comes back again from an agreed upon space. That
Mm-hmm.
isn't, let's try this thing. Because, but I say, what I'm saying, that there's a common feeling, and then let's try this thing. Not let's try this thing, because who needs, you don't need more podcasts, you don't need more of this out there, unless it's genuine for you. So I feel what we've experienced has been more practice now. And I have never seen any of these telecasts. I don't know how they look or what the situation is or how I'm even coming across. And I'm allowing it to be dopely natural that way. But I do feel that we've had an experiment. That occasion allows it to be interrupted enough to reconsider. Hmm?
Okay.
And I say, well, what is the reconsider? And I'm saying, look, to you dudes, you knowingly attempted to destroy my reputation. You know, cancel culture and shit like that. I'm hearing about cancel culture. I did find that there's something other than the canceling away, but there is a ghost that we discussed the other day. But then I also saw the conversation with Tom where passing away didn't matter too much. There was an honest conversation around a similar feeling. And then I also did get a glimpse of Doctor, a kind of wink, how you doing in the passing away. So it was weird enough. The occasion allowed a thing to happen where I then had to consider and explore something. So you got past the trash and the reasons and the motives and the shtick and the trip and protecting their own scene, whatever is getting, making sure that Danny doesn't do this or come into it. Okay. Remarkable. I guess people can do that now with the technology out there. You can ghost, dumb, kill, do whatever you need to do in order to interfere with.
Yes.
And interfere with what? That some little dumb thing is going to be revealed. Yeah. And I say, hold it, man. Uh, you guys were willing to do that shit? Hmm? And put that, okay. So then I said, okay, it seems almost maybe that's the norm in the workaday world. Does that happen in the jobs that you had in Uber? Do they have a cutthroat scene there? Do they have people stealing each other's rides or stuff like that? Or
I think so. Not that
is that everywhere?
I would. I mean, it's been my experience. Most places that I've worked have been kind of cutthroat or had a cutthroat element.
So then let's say you can convey to them it worked. Okay. I feel out of the picture there, where I thought that somehow I was connected to them and being there for it. It freed me from a very weird story. Um, and it's also freed you to, if it's a job for you, it's pretty weird enough, I guess, but you're free to explore it and do it without having to cover for me.
Yeah, no, I was working with Elliot as a temporary for sure.
Well, I heard a bit of a message left on the phone.
Hmm.
We didn't receive it fully, but it had to do with the operation or something.
Yeah, he has a hernia operation next month, or actually in a couple weeks. But
Hernia for what?
uh, uh, he just has a bulge coming out of his abdomen.
Yeah, I've had that before. That's, in fact, I think Spiro, I don't know if Spiro had that, but I've had, after
I
you have,
had it.
hmm?
I had one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the hernia is pretty normal. But if you've had an operation before and they didn't put in a mesh, which is pretty crappy sounding, but if they don't put in, you know what they do? They give you the operation, and then a couple of months later, you get a hernia. But it's almost as if they've planned it. Then you have to go back and get a mesh put in. And you wouldn't have gotten the mesh put in. So a guy whispered to me, he says, get the mesh put in because they'll charge you again 3 months later when you that the hernia is built into the
Wow.
so somehow they're planning on the hernia to happen. So another operation is an insertion then of mesh. But now they're saying with mesh, maybe its own poison also, because somehow it integrates with the liver and the organs
Hmm.
where the mesh is inside of it. So it's a very weird thing. But somehow mesh was normal. But then mesh itself is becoming a problem. But somehow when you enter into the medical industry, you see you've entered into a business. And coming back is like all businesses, they want you to come back. So they don't cure you in one sense. It's you need continued treatment. And then you do see the conspiracy theories, not even it's the normal way things are working, where they're hustling the shit out of you all the time.
Yeah.
And whether you can't pay the rent or your kids need this, it doesn't matter. Those bills are still there and they're impossible. Right. When it should be somewhat caring for people in a way and looking out for them. The institutions themselves start to believe the person, where you understand that the biggest challenge in the social framework is debt, where somehow just to live, you have to then go into enormous debt that organizes your life, where you live in a kind of inherent fear for the rent, fear for this, fear for what's going to happen, you know, which is normal. And so that's generally what happens in that situation when you're kind of dependent on a form. You see that there's a fear of losing a lousy job. Could you imagine that? Like you're being afraid, your job is so shitty, but I'm afraid to lose it. And they say, wouldn't it be a blessing to lose it? And they say, no, it's shitty and it's dehumanizing and all those other things, but I need it.
Same with relationships.
Somehow, and I think I saw interviews with old slaves where they say, why are you still working on the plantation when you're free? And they said, no, we need the work. So then somehow it went from slavery to kind of work slavery. So then you see, oh no, they freed the slaves because they had to pay for their homes and feed them. Once you freed them, then they had to pay for their own homes and stuff.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So you actually save money by freeing them. So you say, holy shit, is everything,
Mm.
is everything, that Nancy Pelosi is now in Taiwan. The Chinese now have their army or their navy about to do this or have war games or this and that. And I remember as a kid in the Navy and on the ship that those kind of threats always existed. That the waters, when you went in the Mediterranean, you went towards the Suez and stuff like that, that there was contested water all the time. And so you, without realizing it, you see, holy shit, these guys are controlling this factor. They're going to drop a bomb somewhere here. They're going to do this. That underlying threat is there. But then you also see from it where it's not really coming to you that way. But again, if you stay with it, you also see a broken heart running through humanity. And whether it's causal or not, they usually think it's causal because this tribe had a fight with that tribe and this one did that and they want this. But you see that somehow there was inherent, from the get-go, it was inherent. And that wars happen, fights happen, struggles happen, contests happen between communities. And that was almost inherently in the form. And you see the naturalness of it in some way like that. But then you also see as a person that you're a stranger in a strange land. And I say, why? I say, because we discover war, but we then find out that there are people who are planning it and plotting it and organizing it. You discover it, but it has been there all along. Then I say, I look at the situation you were talking about, Derek, and I say, these guys were pulling this all this time. And, okay, pulling this through, did this. Okay. And yet, an Elliot described to me where this Tom threw a hot cup of tea in his face one day, so that they were always having, and they were always afraid, and because the guy was hurting at the end, I thought that everyone was trying to save him. And I thought we even went into that a couple of times. I tried to grab him because people in Ojai were frightened. And I tried to say, hey, man, you're scaring these old people. But let's say it wasn't a question. It was a question of recognizing. And to me, in recognizing, you did see a broken heart. And you saw how strong it would be, because then it did engage in something that they must have known. It went out there and kind of killed my reputation with this or that, or destroyed this without my knowing it. Okay. So then I find that kind of culture, but I also find a kind of relief in being freed from the literal story, because it was based on, and that's what we were just exploring this morning. It was based on like everyone being into something that we shared. So the sharing became natural between us. So in that point, there was a kind of immersive that we had. And that immersive had its own integrity. And what it did do was create enough of a friendship where it wasn't a contest and it wasn't, competition, but it was a shared space. So that was an attempt. So none of these guys have ever come on anything we've shared or even had a conversation around that. But at the same time, it did allow me to meet something pretty deep around the energy. It got past the trip. So the trip remained the trip, but then I did see the broken heart that existed for the person also existed for them. And they shared a kind of broken heart in their own way. And I think that if you look we'll say if relationships are the medium.
Mm-hmm.
And I did something 100 years ago with a retreat or something with Johnny D and the girl. I don't know these stories, whatever. But at the same time, is that okay with you, Derek?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Or do you have something? What do you say to that?
Seems all of it seems okay. You know, it has my I guess my input is kind of neither here nor there on all of it. I think.
Well, your presence did allow me to say bye bye. You know, that's all. Just bye bye. You're probably right in all this. I probably am that creepy dude that did this, all that. I'm happy to be freed from it and just be a normal show. But then as it comes to you, since you've been really looking out for me at the same time, but now you introduce something that allowed me to look, and I'd like you to be free then to have the job if you want.
No, I'm good.
What do you mean?
Oh, I just don't need the job that bad. You know.
But you took it, didn't you?
I guess it's not really a job though, at least in my mind. You know, it's something I'm going to do for a few weeks so that I can get the rent paid. So I don't plan on. It's not a career or any of that stuff. So.
Uh, what do you say? Let's say you were investigative yourself and you explored and you spoke to Jai, and then Jai said, well, I don't know, but she knew Tom and she knew that there was a heavy scene between them also, or whatever, and it had to be saved. But let's say you explore further. And somehow that is now in the story for you. And I find out that in my mind's eye, these guys pulled cheesy shit all these years, but it wasn't accidental or stupid. They know the tech and they know the reputation they're creating for the stuff. And they know that they're just people. And okay. So then basically, then I say there was a motive for taking up the other guy's story and making it theirs.
Yeah.
And never even mentioning this or that. But the only time that they told me about Tom was when they were frightened of him because and they were trying to cure him and heal him all the time and going all over. But they were frightened at the same time that he was off on a trip. And even how he died with sepsis, there was a beating that happened. So it was a weird world. And I don't know if they're all in that world around dealing stuff and bringing stuff in. You know what I mean? So then through you, I step into their world. And seeing it from that world, that perspective, you have a lot to protect and manage and stuff like that. Okay. So that Danny would be a ball buster in the story, and you would be a ball buster if you loved Danny. So you would have to prove, they would have to prove that your love and affection is a schmucky idea. And in order for you to earn the rent money in that scene, you know the Egyptian? You know how to do the Egyptian? You know how, Kai, do you know how to do the Egyptian? Remember that?
No, there was that song in the 80s, Walk Like an Egyptian.
Yeah, walk like an Egyptian. So you want to walk like an Egyptian? Egyptian. Yeah, Derek, what do you think? Do the Egyptian.
This one here, where you go like that.
So now you do the movements, but in your mind. I say, how do I, when, let's say I used before, you're in a situation where you say, holy shit, they're about to do something, kill someone or do something like that. And you're there and you say, holy, you're in a situation with maniacs. And you could say, look, I have to pee, I'll see you later or something like that. But somehow, but there is something called doing the Egyptian, where it takes you out of the present. And it has you in a kind of special space. Hmm? So what do you say? What do you think about all this, Derek?
It's a lot to process. I don't know exactly what to say.
I think you should probably get $50,000 to be the cheese ball you're going to have to be. I'll agree to be cheesed out if you can make not only the rent money, that's a bit cheap to sell out,
Hmm.
but that basically I'm the guy who did all that cheesy shit and stuff like that. I'll agree to it if you could make 50 grand, 100 grand, but $250 or something. Come on, bro. These guys got dough. They've got his father left him dough. He has that house. That house is 3 times over. They've got 4.5 million stashed in circumstance. They can let you have enough for a college education. I'm kidding with you.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to.
Just try to say for yourself, try not to sell out for a buck, especially if the buck is paltry. So, because I would acquiesce to you being okay, but I wouldn't acquiesce so much for you having 3 weeks taken care of and then coming back into the story, having left it the way it is, because they should really feel bad for the shit they pulled.
Hmm.
But I ain't asking for it. I don't mind that not happening and kind of being free from something with them. Because something is happening with me at the same time, where I'm leaving the story to some degree. Now, whether that means dying or not, but that somehow, if they can say that about me, I must be really an irrelevant jerk out there. You understand? That's how I discover that. So I discover my irrelevance, that these two guys can find that term for me with you, or and I say then something that can be that in fact it would seem like the people themselves would want to clear up immediately, not clearing up as if it was a fault, but that you would kind of proceed with the relationship from the clear space. Okay. So then I say, why? I say, okay, for rent money, you'll proceed with it. And I say, that makes sense, but for me, it has a kind of cheese smell to it. That I say, okay, it's okay with me, but can I be released then from the story with you in that way where you're looking out for me and putting this together with me, and somehow we shared naturally our relationship where somehow you can come into my circumstance and live easily or whatever, or leave it, and we just share a naturalness, and it's not a contract, it's not this, but somehow there's a shared space in our lives. And this is evidence of a shared space, and a lot of inner workings are revealed, and this and that come out of it.
Yeah, my preference is the shared space.
Yeah, but a continued shared space without there being a transformation in the circumstance you're in. It's not that you just made rent money, but somehow there's an honest dialogue. Because what they would do with me if I ever did that to anybody, that I knowingly went out there to destroy them. It's not that I don't have knowledge of how the underlying thing. I had met the guy's father, and we had a retreat there, and Claire took care of the guy afterwards that met the guy that the son could have never met in just simple conversations before he died. So basically, we've shared something pretty deeply. And then all the other guys that went there with their experiments, sexual experiments with acid or whatever, and I say, okay, only if it got, it seemed to be cool with me or whatever. But at the same time, you knew that there was a heavy scene. Because it was a heavy scene, not because you thought it was a heavy scene. But then you met, what's their names? The fellow.
Avi.
Hmm?
Avi?
Well, not Avi, but we met Colombo. And we met some heavy guys that came out of there with their experiments, with their sexual experiments that they were doing. Whatever, I have no clue about it, but only when people reacted. But that basically, they had some heavy hitters there. And when I met them, Columbo I liked a lot, but he was intense. And he did call me, though, a few years ago. I think a few of them called me and kind of apologized because they knew that they were screwing with me when I was trying to help them. And what was I trying to help them? I said, look, man, you don't pass on AIDS. I know how stupid I sound to you, but homie, don't pass on AIDS to kids or anybody. You understand? And so, homie, don't do that. You know, homie? So some of the scenes that were described to me, so in that, but I do think that a sweetness manifested with Columbo a few years later when there was a kind of apology for he knew he knew I was trying to reach him in something, and that pattern was strong, that he had AIDS himself or something like that. So it was a driving force. And so once there's a community that has a similar thing, they speak their own language. And we also have a young woman who's now probably in her 40s, but was born with AIDS. Her mother died of AIDS in Key West there. And that John has been taking care of all these years. And she was one of, I think, 10,000 children that were born with AIDS and were treated all those years. And what a remarkably sweetheart of a person she was. But at the same time, that condition was underlying her whole life. And we're kind of normal with it, but then there was quite a few things that was happening like that. So I say basically, these guys have gone through a lot also, and that's why I say when I located Tom, it was no longer Tom; it was a hurt. It was and beyond that, a kind of broken heart. But then I also saw that the broken heart was not caused by anyone; it was revealed. That somehow the person has entered into the life with a broken heart as the underlying premise. And so I felt some things. So that was kind of revealed. It needed to be cheesy enough for me to look at it deeply enough and not. But in seeing it, then I saw the thing that united them because they were very diverse characters. But I saw the thing that united them was a similarity of the broken heart. And I met something like that with Elliot's father and him, where somehow he was trying to reach his father, and his father was a brilliant guy. But you also understand that in a scholastic family, one is the black sheep of the family if they're not scholastic. Okay? So who knows what the stories are of families? But somehow there's a hurt that runs through the family. Is it causal? It looks like it's causal, but it seems to be inherent. And even the kids pick up, even no matter how much they're cared for, they pick up the hurt that runs through the story. The thing is that in caring for them, you've interrupted repeating the same hurt. So in some sense, our kids are born free to find a life, not to repeat the past life or whatever, but somehow to come from a clearer space where they're born free. I feel that to be so. But again, when I had the experience, I experienced a common hurt. And so the differentiation between myself and the others was not there. I saw there was a common hurt that manifested where they think it has reasons for the hurt. My mother did this, my uncle did this. So there's a reason for the hurt. And that it travels through the world. Okay. But then you also, when something forces a deep reflection, not to get rid of it, it changed the perception of it. Just like as if you got a hurt in your arm and you were looked at it a bit further and you had it examined, You would have a different perception of what is happening than just reacting to it and getting rid of the pain. You would look at the cause of the pain and seeing the cause of the pain, then getting rid of the pain would be at part of it. But you see, getting rid of the pain before it's explored, where the pain may be telling you something to see. The getting rid of the pain is the normalization of it. But the exploration of it starts to show you dimensions that are coexisting, where getting rid of it is only part of it. It's kind of understanding it, that you're standing in a different weird way, or that somehow your posture is off, or this is happening, and that the body is bare. So you have an experience of seeing, and somehow in the seeing, it automatically changes the premise. Now, you did discuss some of the things that I'm talking about with you then on the trip? No.
I don't understand.
Some of the, on the trip that you made, did you discuss some of the things that I'm discussing with you now?
Yesterday or Sunday, you mean?
I don't know when you went. I guess it was Sunday.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it, it was, I would say, largely unproductive for the most part. I mean, productive in that there could be a future conversation that might have some more depth to it about things, but
Okay. Is it okay for me to say goodbye to them? You can pass it on to me, and also that it shifts something with you a little bit. That's why I say with Kai, we'll see in a couple of weeks or a month or so if we want to create something or do something. But this has been, what we've shared has been our experiment.
and so I guess I'm curious why it changes anything with me. Maybe I'm being naive about that, but
I don't know that it's changing anything. It released the story for me.
yeah, I guess I don't understand why. You know, like the somehow the fundamental relationship has shifted, and I don't exactly see.
Yeah, so that's why this break is there, because it shifted.
But I don't see where it shifted, I guess.
Where it shifted is would it have been, it would have been as if I was you driving the car with me. So if I was in the story, would they have said that? You know, Danny, you did this to Tom's girlfriend, and then if the other one said, yeah, he did it this way, meaning that I did it in such a vulgar, dumb way that's uncharacteristic for a spiritual person.
Yeah, but I mean, I challenged all that.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about challenging all that. I'm saying it was revealed. And it was revealed not only as an opinion or perspective, but it was acted upon in their circumstance.
Yeah.
And so then you signing on to pay the rent, while that critique is there, that critique is not wrong, but the critique is cheesy because it was designed to destroy a reputation in that spiritual world. And so basically, I don't even know about that world, what they are. Okay. But basically, it is an intense one. So you are now about to explore that and help out with that. But then you have the conversation going there. Hey, Elliot, wouldn't you think it was cheesy to pull that on me? And you know my feelings for Danny. And you lay on me that he's a rat bastard, sneaky, hurt dude guy who made those moves, when in fact you may be the rat bastard, sneaky guy who made those moves. But you later throw it to Danny, and I said, that's cool. Maybe he did do that. Maybe Danny is. So then I say, but then you get the rent money. And I say, no, you should get, I'll agree to get 50,000 creatively. And I say, why? Because if he gave you that, their hearts would be in it. There would be a love that would want you to do okay and so on. But rent money and Danny as a mother jumper.
I just saw it as a
I know what you just saw it as.
plastic
I
work of
just saw it, and I say, but when it came to me, then I then had a deep experience with it, and where I saw the soul of the experience. But I also saw these guys carried his framework as theirs for their reason.
Yeah.
So when you said that Avi went this and that, then I said, yeah, they're probably right. Maybe
You know,
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind being the creep that they just described, if in fact I can be free of the scene that I'm in now. If it's no longer appropriate, if I'm that dumb a creep,
yeah. I
or
mean,
if you can't just grab them by the fucking head and say, "Are you kidding? You're gonna mess with my sweetheart that way?"
mm,
And I'm gonna let you talk shit that way about my sweetheart with daddy's been there for me and looked out and
that
saved
is
my pillow.
that is what I did. That is what I did for sure. You know.
I don't know that.
Yeah, it was you know, and then it sort of reached a kind of crescendo, and then it just sort of stopped. You know, the conversation of it. It was this kind of because I think they saw that I wasn't
They
budging.
knew that it was helpless with you. It was hopeless.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They thought maybe you couldn't because you had enough know-how to enter in, but it was hopeless. But what wasn't hopeless was what they put out to influence the circumstance. And so in that, I say it allowed me to say it was cheesy enough in my mind's eye that allowed me to say goodbye and good luck.
I see.
Hmm? And so I'm saying that to them, okay, goodbye and good luck, man. I hope it works out for you guys, but I'm not, if I'm this creep you described, I'm not in the story. I'll go back to my creephood. Okay, but let's say I don't think it's a very cool scene for myself. So whenever I get into in all our circumstance, where most of the spiritual shit that's going on is really about making a buck and organizing this, and you see these guys in a macabuck circumstance, and they're pretty successful with it. Then you understand that without you being free from me, you represent a threat to the circumstance
Yeah.
because you would see it's a make a buck enterprise. And that is becoming a challenge with most of the spiritual places or expressions out there when you see the underpinnings of making a buck is so strong, when that usually was not part of the scene in the past. You had how the money came and how it didn't come was always a challenge creatively. But
Yeah.
somehow you didn't want to sell out.
Hmm.
And selling out was not spelled out, but when you share, like if you're in movies together, if you're in art together, if you share the sadhana together, there's a look that you share with each other when you're being forced to get the rent money or sell out or whatever, but it's not, so there's a measurement that happens in the creative life where the literal life forces you into a fear-driven life. And you see that that's the nature of the organized world out there. It's fear-driven. The rent, the this, the enough money. So money becomes the factor. And I say for us, money frees you from money. But in that world, money means making more money, and the lifestyle then demands more. And so it becomes that dynamic. So then I say, hold it. You stepped into a pretty plush scene. And now you're going to do memoirs?
Not yet. Anyway.
No.
Yeah.
So then I'm saying, in my mind's eye, I'm freeing you to be with this thing with a straight face where I'm not so much in the picture.
I mean, the experience to me is not that important, you know, to explore. I think over there.
Then we'll send you the rent money.
Okay. I may almost have it. You know, I mean, just where I may almost have it just where I'm at. So
I say, it's not that it's a banquet, but you have friends and they say, okay, now the gun to your head if a circumstance arises. So what do you need? We can maybe work this out or something like that. Or okay.
Yeah, I guess I feel.
So why? So that if you go into an expression, it's truer for you.
Yeah.
Because you understand the underpinnings. If they had to get rid of me for you to do it, then there may be some heavy scenes waiting.
Got it. It never dawned on me that that was getting rid of you. You know, it just seems like the machinations of people who were wanting to make machinations.
Machinations? What do you mean by
Or
machinations?
machinations. You know,
What if your name was Guyana Bays? Guyana, can you hear?
Yeah.
not yet.
Oh.
Almost there.
Is she on? How are you doing with all this, Kai? Guyana,
Hi.
can you hear?
Yeah.
Yes? Well, let's see if it comes on naturally. What do you think about taking a break in a circumstance and see if there's enough feeling in a month or so to try something?
I'm comfortable with however you would like.
Well, I don't have a like. I'm trying to see it's up in the air.
Yeah, I guess
In
the
other words, let's say,
changed for me. You know,
hmm?
I guess the feeling hasn't changed for me at all. It seems
Well, let's say,
so.
hello, Guyana, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear now. Hi,
Okay.
namaste.
You know, let's say that someone then says Danny is a rat bastard mother jumper who comes from Brooklyn and Queens and these Jew bastards or whatever they're going to say, Danny. And they say, oh, you know, you're probably right about all those things. But being called that certainly frees me. It would be like then a lover who then breaks up with you and says, get lost, you old. If Mary said to me, get lost, you old bastard, I would have the same experience that Tom had. You understand? So then I understand what it is. How heavy and how a love for Mary, how heavy and profoundly it can affect the situation. So whether Mary could have just said, hey, I'm a woman and a person in my own right. If you're asking me something, I don't know that I want to be with you or have my life like that. I'm a free person. And you ain't gonna do poor guy on me and all that shit and hurt guy, try to force me into some weird situation. If I get in a situation, it's because I feel to, and because I feel it's good. So if you're a hurt guy, I'll try to give you some milk or some shit like that to help you out or some therapy. But if you want this sweet thing, do you know, Miana, what this sweet thing is? Wasn't it in that movie? There was a movie where
That was Rosie Perez.
yes, there was a bunch of women there, and the guy was acting tough, and she said, if you want this sweet thing, man, you better stop the shit and act like a sweetheart yourself and drop this manly bullshit. And she told him that in the thing. So what do you say then, Derek? I'm now introducing the relationship as a creative act.
Yeah.
And somehow the life that we think has been normal, in fact, has, holy shit. I went to India, I went to this happened, and all of a sudden that became a natural way of living. I didn't have a job. I didn't have this. I didn't have that. The living itself came out of that. The job was living. So it freed the story.
Well, I guess I kind of have a practical question in that
Yes, I would say that if you're going to take on the job, it's because you think it's a good thing, not because you need the rent money.
But then,
Now, it is true that when I went to India first, Yana, I had got a job with these mafia guys for 10 weeks. I had to hide to get enough money to go to India at the time. And these guys opened a Venetian blind company, but I also saw these poor people that they had dipping their hands in bad stuff to, you know. And there was a girl also who waved at me there. And I saw that they were using these people. I had to, and they knew that I saw that these mafia guys were gonna come after me because they knew that I empathized with these people, that I was only there just to get this damn money, to Air India money. Okay. And then my mother-in-law, who was the bookkeeper there, I called her from the airport and I said, why don't you come to India with me? And she says, thanks a lot. I was leaving the job. I said, what are you doing with such a shitty job yourself, for Christ's sakes? You understand? So somehow Uh, and I invited her. I don't know if she left that job. She subsequently passed away. But that dopiness, where somehow we were invited to an ashram in India in Rishikesh, but I drove the guy cross country when they came here, and he was teaching mantras. We went to San Francisco and Chicago and then back to New York, and they left and they invited us there. And then a few of us planned how Meshuggah we were, where we left everything and we went there to that place. And I told you after about, I don't know how much time it was, but I was really intensely there in Rishikesh with these mantras and dysentery. And we were drinking that shitty water out there. I probably lost teeth because of it. I found out later on, I had a report on the news that people who were in the Ganges in the early 70s, 69 to 70s, Americans came back with gum disease from using the water. You know, and I did. I never knew why it happened. When I came back, I had to go to Columbia Dental School. And they said, I was lying there with my girlfriend, and they said, they were showing to the students, you see, his teeth are going to go completely. They were telling like I was dead, like I didn't exist. I was laying there. And they described me. And they said, there's no way to turn it around again or whatever. Okay, so what a weird scene. But then I found out 45 years later that it was brushing your teeth in the Ganges if you came from New York.
No, my teeth are fine.
I know you.
It's
you didn't brush-
it's only for Jewish men, not for Jewish women.
Well,
There's a distinction there.
oh, I see. Well, no,
Yeah.
I'm not exactly this or that. You know, I told you.
I was protected.
My mother at 16 ran away and married an Italian boy. And they were Spanish, somewhat influenced themselves. And then he died and had my brother. And then they needed to find, so her father took her back into the family. And so they had to find a schmo. My father, who was an artist or whatever down there, probably needed a Greek. So then I also ran into a situation like that where I then had a girlfriend at that time, and she said, let me tell my family that we married and they'll give us enough money to get an apartment. This is how little cheesy hustlers we were. You know, so then we then had the ceremony and they introduced me to this Jewish family and this and that. And she said, hey, Brooklyn. And they said, this is Danny Booby, the grandmother. And she went, fair. Is this the best you can do? This little schmuck here, me. So let's say I was, all these guys were, they knew what they were doing. They needed someone to marry. They needed a baby. And then I also found out that the father took my mother back because they needed a baby to be named after the grandfather who passed away in their laws. And they needed this schmo for, I didn't know that they needed a baby. Okay, you understand? So then she said, look, we'll get the money. So we had then the party, but we weren't married. Then the mother said, where's the marriage certificate? And I said, it's in the mail. It will be coming in the mail in a couple of days. Then we ran to Queens to a rabbi for $25 and he married us so that we were legitimate. But somehow I was then hooked into this weird scene, okay, of this family. And we found out that she had to have a baby because her mother, she was born with a Polish husband and a Jewish mother. And so somehow they had to find me without me knowing it. They had to find me to set, because she screwed up in having a Polish dude or something like that. So they needed a Jew who wasn't a Jew, who didn't know shit about anything. So let's say I discovered that in retrospect and I said, what a beautiful, weird thing that I stepped in. Okay. And then this happened and what a scene happened and a baby did come. And it came, what was the name? On the radio, they were singing Michelle, My Belle. So Michelle was the name, they needed an M name. So I'm in a weird world. Always.
Mhm.
What do you say, Derek? Now, if most of us, how did this woman get to India? When I was asked to deliver a pair of shoes to her ashram, and I climbed over a barbed wire fence, and I went in there, and I saw both of them, two women doing the Egyptian. That's why you know the Egyptian. Both of you were, and he was lying on his side, and we were goofing around, but he was doing like the Buddha on
It's
his
called
side.
Leela. It was Leela. We were just playing in
I
the astral
understand.
plane.
I understand, but I'm visiting. Okay, so let's say I'm visiting. So to me, and also meeting him that time when he had a broken heart somewhat about you leaving or whatever, that I'm meeting a regular guy who happens to be a guru, but he's also a regular guy with a broken heart. So he's experiencing things that Americans normally experience.
Mhm.
So somehow it's natural for two American women to be there with him, and somehow it's natural for Mangalananda Saraswati to, okay. But you introduced them to a new, remember it was boy yogi, a boy found in the woods.
Mhm.
They found a child in the woods. Was he 14 when they found him?
Yeah, he left it, I think 8.
Okay, so 8 years old, they found the Bal Yogi, boy yogi. And so, holy shit. Now, I told one story before. Remember the beggars on the other side by the lepers?
Of Lakshman Jula. They're not there now.
Lakshman Jula. There's a little village of beggars also. So I remember I was sitting and hanging out
It's
with
a
them.
leprosy colony. Remember, they
Yeah,
had no.
they used to do like that with their hands.
It
all
was
the
so
time when you
freaky,
walk past
right?
them.
With
But then I
the
got to be
soap.
friends with a lot of the lepers. And then you saw
Yeah.
they were just people who had
Mhm.
leprosy. They weren't lepers. You know what I mean? But until you met them, they were lepers, and they would do lepers. They would push their hands at you to
Would
get
do
money.
lepers, and I would go as fast as I could.
So then I also mentioned that, and I met some beggars, and they were going to break the leg of the child so he would be a better beggar.
Mhm. Right.
And it was like he was going to graduate school the way they were talking, like he was going to be a
Right.
brilliant beggar. And I said, are you sure you would break his leg? And they said, sir, you Americans don't understand.
Right.
Begging is our life. The more you want the tourists to give you money, so you have to break their heart. So the child has to be so hurt and saying, bakshish, bakshish, how brilliant. I didn't realize it was a career.
It's a
And
career.
they go to school to study it and how to do it. And I say, holy shit.
Or how to be blind.
For them to break the legs of the child or something, so it will be a better beggar.
Mhm. The blind ones
Okay,
were
I'll check.
better.
Hmm?
Blind.
So you see that you're a stranger in a strange land. I'll catch you later. And what they're saying is normal, but for you, it's kind of inhuman.
Except if you're accepting it, it just seemed like part of it. I mean, retrospectively, you look at it differently, but when you're in the context and you're living day by day with nothing, it just seems like part of it. I don't know.
No, it is part of it, but let's say, I don't need to go there. You can be on the Lower East Side being a drug addict with other drug addicts. And it's certainly part, it's even heavier than leprosy, whatever.
Right.
Strung out there, and that they have to hide it from your family and hide it from this while
Right.
you're living in a kind of sorrow. And there's a little, so let's say it doesn't need India, but then if you go into people who are killing themselves, there was just this last week, a couple that was selling fentanyl. The baby swallowed some fentanyl, 8 months old, and they couldn't get the baby out of it. It was dying. But then they did get an ambulance and they gave it that Narcan immediately. Snapped out of it immediately. They saved the life. But a little speck of fentanyl, there's a tiny, this artificial fentanyl, it's all over the joint. People are just collapsing around it. But generally, when you go into that part of town where fentanyl is running it and the gangs are running it, you don't need India. Okay, you see it right here, a couple of blocks away. It's happening in our place. This seems, when he asked me what's happening in America, it seems that there's a broken heart that's happening.
Right.
They want to say right wing, left wing, this is happening. but it seems a deep broken heart is happening. And when we were just discussing earlier, where someone said that I took Mary away from them years ago, and they lost it. But then as I was seeing the cheesiness, the bullshit of it, the this and that, but as I was with it deeply, I met the guy, the broken heart. That was the broken heart speaking, not the, and so then I met the guy in that space, but he's passed away. So all of a sudden I'm having a conversation where I understand his feelings, because if I also lost Mary in the same way, I would, so there was the broken heart connected us. But then you see the issues that the person has, this and that is happening, this is happening. And I say, why? Remember Sitaram?
Mhm.
Not
Yep.
Sitaram, Rumi.
No, Ram Puri,
Ram,
Ram something Puri.
you remember Goa Gil?
No, I still, it's so
I
funny.
know, you just showed me a picture of them. You
Well, I
remember?
went to my son's house last week because he lives near me, and he was reading a book about all the key people in the 70s. And so Gil Levy, Mangalanan's name, Gil Levy, is like many times in the book. So my son, I mean, he met Mangalanan. We went out for lunch, and he's really influenced, because all of these people moved here to the river. So the people that work with Leary, they're all like the parents or grandparents of the kids that live here. Just like, people that were at Spears Road moved into Sebastopol to begin like a Waldorf school. And I think that Waldorf school is still there. So it's like,
you know who's visiting me now? Remember
Who?
Stephen? Do you remember that fellow Stephen Harrison?
I have a hard time remembering, but
Remember him there? Yeah, he was.
was he at Santa Rosa or in
Yeah, he was in
San
Santa
Rafael?
Rosa in that house there, and then when
Okay.
when it all dissolved, when Doctor died, and I left
Mhm.
there, then so Stephen, I think, went to Boulder, Colorado,
Okay.
and created something. So he's also a teacher up there. I think his book is called, I don't know what it is, but he's here now in an intense moment with a few other friends. They drove down from Boulder, and I'm
Now I
having
should
a
take a ticket and come over and see you.
a small retreat about where we are all in life now, in the sadhana and the journey and the real situation.
Maybe September I'll come.
Okay, let's see if we're still alive.
Well, that's always
Matter of
something.
fact, I think that what's happening in September, I think Mary's going to New York. Spiro, I think, may be going to New York also. But just keep in touch.
I'll keep in touch because I'm going back to India. I've not been there for 3 years, but Swamiji's going to be 94.
Holy
So
shit.
it's my last year. I mean, I'm
You know,
70.
I'm calling this period holy shit.
Yeah, but the whole thing is holy shit because we got to figure out what
Everything that's happening is holy shit. It's holy and
what
bullshit
was this?
simultaneously. So I've been working with that a little bit. But that's
Have
good.
you listened to a guy named, his name is D'Angelo. He wrote a book called Awake, and he's an anesthesiologist. So my son said, oh, he probably was awake because he used ketamine because he's an anesthesiologist, but he
Ketamine is
happened.
very popular now.
No, he's very popular. But he bypassed the ritual. He woke up at 24. He sees the dimensions. He still goes through medical school, and he's an anesthesiologist and is just now talking about, living that you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, that multi-dimensional frame. And he's functional without ever going anywhere, although I think he has a bit of a Buddhist thing. So I have his book because I listened to something on him, And I thought, oh, I need to read the book. I buy these books because I think these people have something, then I don't read it, But I think he might have come across something.
I think that,
Yeah.
look,
What?
you hear that?
Yeah. What is it? Is it a H? Is it a
Oh,
wavelength?
that?
Oh, yeah. Tuning fork. It's healing your brain. Oh, Danny.
So basically, I'm surrounded in it.
Oh my God.
I think about it. But what I was going to say is that Urja's daughter is also visiting here, and she's a kind of
Ah.
master of Pilates.
Hmm.
But then there was an
Oh,
article in
good.
yesterday's paper that was absolutely beautiful article on Pilates, the
Hmm.
best I've read about it, in the New York, the science page of the New York Times, where and she read it also. We were looking at it, and
Yeah.
they also said, Kai, that it was almost the perfect thing to do. And they told you what would happen in 2 months or 3 months if you did this, and they say 5 months and your body would be completely well. But it was also interesting, and I have a big machine back there,
The Pilates.
and all that stuff that we have here. But
Uh-huh.
she's a master, and she was visiting with her mom and that fellow Steven for a few days from Boulder, Colorado. And we've had a pretty intense time here.
Beautiful.
We call it holy shit. We had a holy shit moment.
You had a beautiful, beautiful.
Where we're still kidding around, but we're still exploring some of it. We'll see. There's a couple of more days left with that one. I'm kind of invited to do a podcast, but I'm still I don't know if I'm retiring from the tech in some sense because
Why?
because I'm dying. And then
We're always dying.
And so, yes, but now there's a recognition of dying. I say, why? You got a little tube in your canoe. So look, always dying. Now you're talking to me.
Did
from
something
months ago.
happen to you that is, did
No,
something,
I'm saying that something happens to you where you read that dying and living is happening normally.
yeah, so you
But then
stop
if cancer,
talking.
but then if a kind of cancer introduces you to that and explore that, and you also understand that you don't do medical that way, you do this or do that, but you're kind of treating yourself and caring. So basically you meet in the philosophy itself, you discover that dying is not death. Dying and living are happening normally. Like Urja over there, before you say yes, she's a doula, death doula. These characters that you're meeting here are not slouches also. They have lives or whatever. So I remember a few years ago, we discovered something, and then we discovered a whole area of not treating death as death, woo-woo, scary, but as a natural process. But
Yeah.
let's say for us, when we perceive that dying and living is happening simultaneously, and you see the body juggling that act, and it has been all along, it's been, the immune system is juggling dying and living all the time. You discover it. When you discover it, you have a relationship with the body that is almost like a lover,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
you meet your body. How you doing, baby? I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you before.
I've
So
done
all of a
this
sudden,
around
you
you.
meet your first love, and somehow you meet your first love by having ignored it so long and taking it for granted and talking shit. And then all of a sudden, some stupid thing happens to your knee or your back or your ass, and you have to explore it a bit further. And you say, holy shit, you became aware of a system that is so profound that has been happening all this time while you've been talking shit about mantras. This thing has been taking care of you.
Mhm.
And it's even listening to your bullshit. That's the same. It even laughs at some of the things you're saying because it
Mhm.
knows how heavy duty it's working. Okay. So something happens where you meet it. You meet your immune system, not as your ownership, but holy shit, it's almost like a lover. It's been looking out for you all this time. And you really, okay, so somehow I think a change happens in relationship where your body is almost like your baby.
Mhm.
And so, in other words, just as you would instantly, if you fell down while you were pregnant, you would not fall on your belly, you would fall on your head. So you understand instinctively you would care for that. I feel that we've explored something where somehow instinctively that you would care for the baby, you would discover that the life force in yourself is also that baby.
Mhm.
A discovery of that. So there's instant natural care that comes just as if you were a mom to the child. There's a look, they share, there's a dynamic. When you meet that in the body, it's not the body, a stranger, it's you.
Mhm.
And so I feel that with that experience,
Mhm.
you come back into the story from the energy, into the
Mhm. Mhm.
so then
So why would you stop talking? Why? Why would you stop talking?
it's not stopping talking, it's seeing that the relevance, I'm reflecting on certain things that have happened. So then to some extent, I can say, well, can we take a break from this meeting? We've been on it for a while and it was our experiment. And then if we reconnect in a month or so, we'll
Oh,
create
I see.
if we want to create a new thing. But for me,
Got it.
what's happening with this medium is that it's served its purpose to some degree. Is that
Oh, I
okay?
see.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just
I thought you were just saying,
but then I'm saying it's not, okay. And then I also felt that I'm speaking to Derek, that he's going through something that I wanted to free him to have that experience or whatever.
Mhm.
And he's also put on something for me, but then I said, the thing that he put on me came from a kind of really friendly love.
Mhm.
So that he exceeded himself in certain things and would be there for it, and it was part of our happening.
Oh, well, then if that happens, then yeah, people have to be released to move on, and whatever
Well,
happens, is gonna happen.
let's say they are released already. It's going to
Good.
happen anyway. Okay, they're going to get a new job or something's going to happen.
God,
So then,
yeah, we move
okay.
on. I mean, I check in every couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, okay, let's see what's happening with Danny. There you are.
I've met you. Goodbye. I'll catch you later.
I'll see you in the next
It's too weird
lifetime
now.
somewhere
It's too
on
weird now.
some
Is that okay,
planetary
Derek?
star.
Would it be better if I just passed away then? What do you say, Will Wright?
No.
Remember Will Wright, Derek?
Yep.
Hi, yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear me very well. I'm driving.
I will.
Hi,
Where are you?
driving. Um, I'm driving between Arcata and Eureka right now.
Ah, it's
So we're having-
beautiful up there.
We're having
Yeah,
what
it is.
we're having
Not too
what
far
you,
from where I live.
Ghana.
Who's
We're
talking?
having what you would call a Meshuggah-a-ton.
Okay.
And it's a nice Meshuggah, a combination of people
I like my sugar.
that could have never met except in this weird creative space or whatever. Okay.
I know, of course. Of
Derek,
course.
do you know
That's how it
Will?
was.
Yeah,
Hmm?
I do.
You know, Elliot said to me, don't tell that guy Will to leave me alone. And I said, what the hell are you talking about, Elliot? I don't know anything that you guys did or whatever. But he said, somehow, he called me one day and he said, don't tell that Will Wright that you have powers. What did you do? You made all
I hope
these
that
other
wasn't
guys
too
feel shit. Hmm? What kind of powers do you have? You're scared
What
the
was
shit
that?
out of these old geezers now.
Yeah, I hope that's really in the past, but I haven't seen Elliot in quite a while. But
What
he did
magic
sort of
power?
reconnect with me a little bit ago, and it was nice, it seems. So I hope it's not too current.
Well, do you think that you're a heavy
Yeah,
duty?
well, I would say
You
that I
think,
was
John, you
exploring
think if you
something
moved in
pretty
with you, you
intensely
would
at
be
the time
heavy
that I scared him.
You scared somebody.
Did you intend to do it?
No, not to scare him, but was pretty
You scare
intensely
me.
committed to what I
Scare
was
me
up
now.
to at the time.
No, let me see how you look when you're scary. Scare me. Tell me, tell me you old geezer bastard, I'm gonna kick your ass the next time I see you. Tell me something like that.
I think
Weird
it
spi-
just
What a
involves,
weird spiritual conversation this is, isn't it? I'm sorry, Kai, but in his own goofy way, I think we're kind of exploring things. So
Well, what
like,
could Bill say that's scary?
can you do scary instead of being scary? Can you do scary? Let me see how you do scary. The wheel is covering your face. Can you do scary or it's too?
yeah. Um, yeah.
Do you think you'd be scared of him?
It's
Guy?
interesting because
No
the
way.
very choice to do it what makes it not scary for others. I think if I'm sort of aware of what I'm doing, it becomes less. I'm less of a threat. I'm not carried away by some mad obsession or something. If I'm choosing it.
Are you
But-
saying your intensity is scary or what you say is scary? Is it the intensity?
No,
Or
it was actions that were scary.
Yes. So let's
I was-
say, for a moment, Will, let's say that you met Gianna and you scared the shit out of her.
Uh-oh.
Then she would, even though you had all these years and you had all these other things, she would remember being scared to shit by you. So that would be the memory that would linger, not you, this or that somehow, but that somehow I had an experience where you really scared the shit out of me, and that would be my memory of you. And so they say, hey, Will is coming over tomorrow. And I say, look, I don't think so. I'll catch you later. And they say, why? He's a
Yeah,
nice
I
guy.
see
And I
how
say,
that could.
okay. And they say, he's a nice guy. He's a decent human being. I said, well, I'll catch you later. I got a sore throat and I feel right. But you then see,
I see how that could predominate. Yeah.
does
Is
it
that what happened to Elliot?
No, I think, I don't know what happened, but I did know that I heard a report that said, holy shit, don't do this or that. There was a time that Elliot's father was, his father was the first Jewish psychiatrist to graduate from Harvard, I think,
Mhm.
And so it was pretty famous for that. And so the whole family was kind of, so when he was going to have a kind of little retreat, he invited me to have a retreat with his father.
Mhm.
To be there because he was trying to reach his dad. And I think he brought his father to see Amaji also, but his father was really laughing his ass off about that one.
You have to
And
wait in
so
line.
we spent an afternoon and we have a tape of it also with
Mhm.
his father and about 10 of us, I think, there. And one of us, Claire, did you ever meet Claire, Kai? No, she left early. She had a nightclub in Woodstock when we first met her, and she was on the piano when I came in, and she was doing like a Billie Holiday number. But she also moved to Santa Fe, and when we got here, she invited us here. And her daughter had a mental illness that was strong, that she would just erupt. They opened a society around it. She handed out cards to people.
Tourette's.
Huh?
Tourette's.
Tourette syndrome, right? Tourette, but they invented handing out cards to people on the plane so that they wouldn't get scared if she went bonkers or something. So it was very intense story that they had here with the family. But Claire loved us deeply and provided for us. And then she took care of Elliot's father secretly. I don't know if Elliot knew that. Was looking out for him until he passed away, I think. So they shared something that the family probably couldn't share, about especially a brilliant person in that alone situation. They shared a conversation. And I would discuss with Claire, not the literalness of the thing, but that somehow they had a kind of love affair between them, a loving feeling of caring for them. She thought he was brilliant, and she was just there, and she was so heavy that it was naturally, if you leaned against her, it would calm you down. She had that. So that was the experience. So then I'm somehow intimate in the stories where I'm not really intimate in the stories, but somehow I'm seeing them. And I have a talk online, I think that Elliot promoted with a talk in the park or something like that years ago. So Elliot somehow swam through our lives, but was never in it, or of it or anything like that. But it was
Is he
always.
still around?
Yeah, I think so.
So he was the one who, so I saw some of those talks in the park. So he facilitated that.
I don't think you've met them. That was an oddball meeting. What they were involved in is I think they're working now with mushrooms and stuff like that,
Mhm.
Now, is it micro doses now, or are they dealing with full dosing? Derek? I think it was micro dosing that they started then to deal with. Most of the world they've legitimized it now. So when we used to take a
Oh, I
trip,
have some so that my brain doesn't go crazy. My son.
no, most people are having, I think I have some that someone left me here.
Yeah, I haven't been taking them, but anyway,
Yeah,
I'll say that's why I became crazy. I'm looking forward to becoming crazy sometimes.
Well, there is a Mary, in other words, when I got the cancer, they immediately gave me a pot card while I was laying there. Okay. But they also gave Mary the right to grow.
Oh, nice.
So then there was a guy called Rick Simpson oil, RSO oil.
Yeah, no, I know Rick Simpson's oil.
And his premise is that he reversed the cancer by taking the female
Right.
and the indica aspect of the pot.
Mhm.
Not the other one. The other one is to get high, but the other one is to make the body mellow.
Right.
He said with his experiment that somehow making the body mellow without getting high,
Mhm.
what they probably felt was happening is that it relaxed the immune system.
Mhm.
What they were finding out for most of us, especially who are vegetarian and live the life that we have, that the bigger challenge would be a running affection in the body.
Hmm.
What the fellow died from and what a few people have died from is not the condition they had, but sepsis.
From the Rick Simpson oil?
No, the Rick Simpson oil, what it was what the symptoms were was that the immune system was overreacting to a small thing. So if you got a cut on your toe, if you got a living
Right.
it blew up, the whole leg blew up. And then
Right.
blew
That's
up.
what happens when you take cortisone. So
Well,
like
it's
if you take a
lupus.
steroid.
But it's also happens around where you discover that there's a thing called lupus,
Mhm.
right? And then you also see that there are variants of lupus. So then I discovered something called Raynaud disease.
Mhm. I know these.
And so what it is, but it's not as bad as the lupus. It is an aspect of it, but it can lead to an infection
Mhm.
that then can run away where people don't die of the condition, they die of the infection. So what happened with me is that then, and then Mary got the right to grow. So it was a kind of devotional growing. So we did this naive thing.
Very lovely.
So basically I've been managing that, but I'm also dealing with a couple of fellows that are, I don't know if you knew Marty.
Names sound familiar, but I'd have to, was he small, short,
No,
smaller? No.
Came
See,
from
I have that old picture. I have an old
Yeah, no, there's
picture of all of us.
What
And
it is that there's a few people who have heavy cancers
Uh-huh.
while we're talking with each other. So we
Okay.
have created a milieu where dying and living is normal.
Right.
Doesn't literally mean death, but certainly the condition then reveals a happening is taking place. And
Right.
So we've created a milieu where we're kind of sharing that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll probably join in soon, but
So, and then this other fellow, Emo, who married Jai, I don't know if you met Emo, the Dutch guy, who then he became powerful guy. He went into Indonesia and had a love affair, and they created a company that was very big. But then he called recently, and he has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he's there in Singapore. And we've been having wonderful conversations while one is in there. In fact, even the doctors were walking past, and the Chinese, I waved at the Chinese doctor, and it seemed sincere. But then we're kind of us, it's not, so we don't do treatment well, because we're kind of natural. But at the same time, it was absolutely sweet. And I've been having conversations with Marty where dying came into the story. It changed the whole shtick from the past, into a baby. So that's what I've been kind of feeling for, that the
Okay.
next stage of relationship is coming from a different place. No
Yeah.
longer past, but it's coming from,
Huh. From the other side.
this is a different period. And
It's
this
coming from the other side. It's like looking from a different perspective. Then it changes it.
you
The
want me to
eye
pull
looking
you
is
by the
changing.
nose. I'm gonna pull you, I'm gonna grab you by you feel your nose being touched?
Okay, you can touch my
Okay.
nose. Absolutely. I'll squint for you. It's clean.
We'll
You're
put
taking my nose off. You can take all of it off. I mean, the nose, the eyes, it can
What do you
all.
say, Derek? Is this weird enough to let you know why we'll take a month break?
Oh, you're taking a month out, only a
No,
month.
I can't, it's not literal. With Kai, who is running this, I was gonna take off next week anyway, because she has to do
Mhm.
some dental work anyway, so. But then I was also saying for some things that were happening here that was pretty intense.
Mhm.
And then this,
It sounds like you had a lot of intensity there
well, this
with
week. has
people
been-
coming.
Well, just this particular thing, I promised to be here for a happening.
Mhm.
So it was kind of focused around that, and I think it has
Right.
done. But the premise was that somehow it starts from a new space, that the retreat is
Okay.
around where it's no longer the history in the background.
No,
But
that would be nice.
So there's a kind of clarity that says, hey, baby, do you want to do this? But not, okay. So there's a hey, baby conversation. What is a hey, baby conversation? A deeply honest, creative one.
Is it going to be a new one?
When something ends and then something then says, hey, baby, are you still into it? Let's give it a
Mhm.
So that feeling,
Mhm.
as dumb as it sounds, hey, baby, means that there's an I and thou shared. So
Hmm.
let's see whether the passing away is literally, or in fact, something is interesting enough that, so basically what has been interesting enough has been the love affair and the friendships. So if someone's inviting you to hang around, why not? Hey, baby, okay. So then, to me,
Mhm.
it's as dumb as that. When someone deeply feels for you and invites you, I feel that that has an effect on many levels.
Mhm.
Where there's no, of course, in the absence of that. So let's say in that relationship, I may say, sure, is it okay if I pass away now? Or is it, and they say, no, I want you to hang around. That dumb conversation is meaningful.
Well, try having
Not
a
so dumb.
granddaughter who's
I'm
only.
not therapeutic for me. To me, dying and living is cool. Now let me be Danny, the so-called cool dude, not the guy who needs help. And I'm saying to you,
Mhm.
it's cool. I'm with it. I've lived longer than it was possible to have lived longer, given that
Right.
I'm 82 years
Right.
old. Holy shit.
Right. We're all
I
there.
could still do all this and move around like that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I do have a recurring cancer as a constant. And,
Did it recur? That part is
well, it's
what
built that way. In the bladder, the acid buildups then create, but somehow I think that,
cancer is back.
oh no, I just had, what I had was, I had to be here, wait for someone in the past was coming. So I had probably was burning the hell out of me for that whole month. So I knew something was wrong, but I still didn't
Right.
want to go and be captured. But then probably, when they inspect you in there, they may give you an
Yeah.
infection because you don't take penicillin. Yeah. So I
Oh.
think I had a urinary tract infection that
Oh,
was
got it.
bad for maybe a month and a half that I didn't do anything about. So then
Okay.
when I went there,
Yeah.
because of the infection, they couldn't see if the cancer returned.
Right.
because
Okay.
it was smoky. So then we got rid of the infection,
Right.
and got a checkup again, and he says, this looks pretty good.
Okay.
At least come next year. So I'm buying a
Well,
year.
no, then you're good. No,
Yeah,
no.
we're buying
I thought
time.
it was going to be bad.
I haven't had a checkup. That's the only thing that I've looked at. I haven't had a checkup for 3 or 4 years.
Don't, no, don't. You don't want to know anything
No,
else. But I
you
mean, we
know
did
what they
go
did,
about
you know
the
what they did
cancer.
say in the New York Times, that 60% of people who have cancer, as soon as they find the cancer, they treat you. They say, you know, they found that 60% the cancer would cure itself if you didn't treat it. Everyone gets forms of cancer, but they disappear, they come back. So then they were wondering if the treating of the cancer for them was
Sure,
causing
it
it.
creates an issue.
And they
Yeah,
said, look, man, you got a cancer business going out there.
right.
Of course, they're going to want to treat you immediately or this and that. And they
It's
said,
the pharmaceuticals run it all.
right. So then you see we're kind of managing ourselves in that world, and you also a nurse in that world, so you know the trips, and also there's a
Mhm.
beauty in it. But you also know the navigation of that world. And so when we get treatment, we don't exactly get treatment. We're still trying to keep something fresh in ourselves. So we do have now a doctor that bicycles over. We know him a pretty long time. He's a sweetheart.
Mhm.
Guy.
Right,
And he cares then for people passing away in different situations like
right,
that.
nice.
So it's a friendly. So I still haven't gotten any examinations at all, but it's okay.
Maybe better not to know. I mean, for me, I don't do anything. I think better not to know. I mean, but I have these little grandbabies talking about what's pulling you. And the youngest one is not even 1 year old, but I can put her to sleep with Brahmari pranayama since she was baby. So it's like, it's the progenation that's created the problem. For me, I just as soon be back in India. I mean, I'm going this year. I have to see Swamiji. He's going to be 94.
Look, I'm sorry with Swamiji, but when I got the letter with you with Swamiji, I saw a broken heart.
Yeah, but you know,
So
he's
now I'm saying not broken heart as a condition, but then I imagine myself living in the woods
Mhm.
and being discovered. And then coming into a world, this weird world from that where the woods was normal. And not the ashram is going to be normal now when it's as weird as can be if you leave the woods. So then I meet him. I feel for him.
Sure.
I
mean,
know the story
not
that he's in. I know the story that he's in, but in the letter he revealed a heartfelt.
Mhm.
That would have been as simple as an American kid saying, crying for a girlfriend. You saw immediately what an American kid would have written, but then you saw a 14-year-old guy from the woods kind of pouring his heart out. So
Yeah.
I thought I was meeting, even though the cops came and picked me up and took me in the Jeep and did all that. And I had to walk with him for while he's sitting under a tiger skin or whatever. And it's the governor's. So they kind of, I had no shirt on. I only had a lungi or whatever. So they took.
I can't believe that he did
Yeah,
that. I mean,
no.
I'll have to call him and talk
No,
about that.
no, you were there. You and Jenny were there at the house when they picked me up.
Well,
but you
we were at the house. Oh, yeah. You
Yeah.
know, so many things for
But what
whatever.
I mean is the
don't.
experiences I kind of, when I met him, even though he was under the rug and he was under this, I met a friend and I
Mhm.
saw it was simple as that he loved you.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
we've
could be
always
as
loved
simple-
each other.
And
It
it
was
could
just
be
a
as simple as,
different.
but I'm saying he loved you, but he was also both things that had a spiritual element to it,
Mhm.
which you can create, but it also, I met myself at that period of time when the
Okay.
girlfriend broke up with me, and so it was. Then I discovered that the normal was spiritual.
Mhm.
You understand? In retrospect, you see the breaking up, and 20 years later, you see it then from a different perspective. You see that the whole life was a kind of
Mhm.
spiritual journey.
Mhm.
And so I felt I met him in that feeling. And then he took us to see a woman's ashram the next day with these heavy women
Right.
that came and
Mhm.
greeted us and kissed us.
I remember that.
Okay. So I felt very close to him at that time in that situation. And that was,
Mhm.
are you sure you didn't come to America? Because there was a guy with his name that I gave a pen to because I thought it was him. I lost a good pen.
I know, but he did come. He
And
came
I
from
did say to him,
79 to 80, but I was pregnant and he wanted me to return to India. But I had already married and I was pregnant with my son. So 79, he came. and left in 80.
No, I'm
And
talking about 5 years ago. About 5 years ago, did he possibly come through Santa Fe?
no, because he came
So it was
around.
another guy. It was another guy with his name that looked a bit
Oh,
like
really?
him.
Look like him.
So then I walked up to him. I gave him the pen. I
Aw.
said, "Remember Rishikesh going back?" And he said,
And of
"Yeah."
course, yeah,
And
yeah, of
or
course.
maybe he was making believe.
Typical Indian response. Of course, I know who you
And I
are.
said, "Well, here's a pen for you," and because he was going to give a singing thing, he was going to go in
Uh-huh.
and we're all going to sing together. But I thought
Oh,
it was him, you know. He was
it
called
would be
calling
beautiful.
himself Lal Yogi, yeah. But as a matter of fact, I lost the pen because of you.
Yeah, but you had a nice feeling of emotion. Come on, what's better, a pen or emotion? Let's talk about it.
Okay, shall we call it a day?
Well, I'm happy I jumped on. Anyway, thank you.
I'm happy. Come on as you feel to, you know. But
Well.
again, well, Sundays. I'm on Sundays. That I'll stick with for a while, I think,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
Marty,
I spend a
Marty
lot
comes-
of time at my daughter's with the grandkids to kind of raise them in a way I want to raise them, which is different than how the parents raise them. The grandparents' role is way different. And so right now that's kind of like my sadhana. But so Sundays, a lot of times I'm there, but if
Well,
I'm
you're
not,
a grandma. You're a grandma.
of many.
Holy shit! Oh, that's what I mean.
No, no,
Holy-
no. They
How the
keep
hell did
populating.
you get to grandma? What the
I
hell?
know. You should
The last
see
time I
me.
saw you were doing.
Yeah, see me in Grammy
And now you're
mode.
talking shit with grandma and rap and rapper boys
Even
and
my son's friends, and they're in the
Okay.
40s, call me Grammy. I am like the Grammy of Sebastopol.
Jana.
Yeah,
I'm so
I'm the
nice to see
Grammy.
you. And so nice to see you, baby.
Nice to see you.
Come on when you can, okay?
I
I'd
will.
love to
And
you.
thank you to everybody
Namaste.
else, because I
Although,
don't see
you
the
know, there's an Indian comedian that said, will you white people stop saying namaste? Namaste just means hello. Stop going namaste, namaste. That's what he was saying, this comedian. It was
no,
so
no, it
funny.
means the God in me sees the God in you, the namas.
But he
I
asked us,
see
he
you.
said, look, in India, we just mean hello with it. It doesn't mean that you have to do it. But he was kidding
Yeah,
around like that. So we were
he
talking
was
with some
kidding
yogis.
around.
We were talking with some yogis and we all laughed about that. You know.
But you don't want to shake a hand anyway. COVID taught us that.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Yes, sir.
Love you guys.
Derek,
Bye.
you can give a call anytime if you like.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
touch base. Okay. Take care, everyone. Will, nice to see you.
See you guys.